Hello, and welcome to the KML Weekly Preview. This is the Week 6 edition. We are now approaching the midway point of the regular season, where people are starting to see what their teams are like, what the trends are, and what's important to know moving forward. So without any further ado, let's get right into the games. Bring on game number uno. The first game I want to talk about is going to be the 4-1 Cabo Ghosts sitting there in first place where they belong, going up against the revenge, that's wrong, the return of the Sharknado. I get these names mixed up sometimes, but this is the return of the Sharknado. This is Rob's third team name this year, I think. Third or fourth, probably third team name. I think the changing of the name has a lot to do with him feeling pretty good about his chances, feeling pretty good about his team after some early season losses to Vit, and he's going to set a new course for his team, and he thinks this team name is going to be the way to do it, channel some of that 2013 magic that he captured back then. He's currently 2-3, sitting there in 7th place, just missing playoffs, but not far off the pace. The line in this one has the Cabo Ghosts. They're favored by about 5 points. The all-time record in this one favors the Cabo Ghosts as well at a 5-1 clip. However, that one is a big one, and it keeps him up at night, and he'll never forgive himself for it, or Calvin Johnson for that matter. Fuck Calvin Johnson. First thing we're going to talk about is the Cabo Ghosts. This team is getting their shit together. It seems like it's getting better by the minute. I mean, last week, I should say, Week 5, they beat Wingus on Sunday Night Football. It was a good, hard-fought matchup, but in the end, field goal kicker just kicked was too much for Wingus. He couldn't handle it. He had Will Tye going, and that was the end of that. But it was a good night for the Cabo Ghosts. The most important news for this team right now is they got Mad Brady back. Mad Brady doesn't look like he missed a step. He is pissed. He's going scorched earth on the fucking league. And from week to week, it's just, there's no ceiling. As far as there's no ceiling on how high he can go, how many points he can score, even for an old fucking man that nobody really likes. Anyway, as for the matchup this week, Cabo Ghosts, they have Brown, Antonio going to Miami. They also have McCoy, Shady going to San Francisco, or going up against San Francisco. That game's actually in Buffalo. Those are two good matchups for those players. Cabo Ghosts, I talked to the management earlier today, feel pretty good about those two matchups, think it could be some big numbers put on the board, some crooked numbers, if you will. And now we're going to talk about the return, whatever you want, the return of the Sharknado. This team lost to Scott last week, and if you thought losing to Vit was bad, losing to Scott is worse at this point in the season. Vit may have had his struggles early, but Scott is his team. His team's all over the place. It was a bad loss for the Sharknado. I know he wasn't very happy about it. The real question here for coming up this week is Lacey healthy? Lacey left the game in Week 5, and surprisingly, the management of the Sharknado was silent on waiver night. Didn't do a thing, didn't pick up the Starks handcuff, and if Lacey is out, that could be the difference, because all of a sudden he's going to have to start Chris Ivory, which just saying the word start Chris Ivory starts making it feel like it's a loss off the bat. I mean, might as well start nobody. You got no chance of negative points that way. I will say for the team, though, this week going to Week 6, that Nelson and that Hopkins, they got good matchups. They got good, strong matchups. Looks like they put some points on the board. As for the pick on this one, I'm going to pick the Cabo Ghosts. I just think that, with Mad Brady back, there's no telling how high this team can go. Even with Hopkins and Nelson having those good matchups, I just think you got to ride the hot hand. You got to ride Mad Brady, basically butt fucking the rest of the NFL with his both middle fingers in the air as he throws those TD passes. It's going to be interesting, though, because this one's going to be over early. It's over by Sunday Night Football. Nobody's got any late games. Nobody's got any Monday Night Football games. So lock it in. I'm going with Cabo Ghosts to move into 5-1. Next game. Boom. The next game we're going to talk about is the Buddy Van Doodles at 2-3, sitting there in 6th place, right on the cusp of playoffs, going up against Go Cubs in shit. 2-3 as well, but sitting in 9th place because that's where he belongs. The line on this one favors the Buddy Van Doodles by about 5 points. The all-time record's actually tied 2-2. So, even matchup historically on these two teams. As far as the Buddy Van Doodles, they lost to the KBGs last week. The one thing that was very interesting about that matchup is I've never seen anything like it. the Buddy Van Doodles had over 80 points by 2 p.m. and then proceeded to shit all over themselves and end up with a total of 98 points on the weekend. And that is unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen a team score more points that early and then fizzle into nothingness for that extended period of time. I mean, you would have thought it was Jarrett's team by the way that was going. In response to that tough loss, the management, the front office, the general manager, he ended up making a huge trade today, cleaned house, basically traded away all his wide receivers to get some running backs back. It's going to be real interesting to see how that shakes out. We here at the studio analyze that trade frontwards and backwards and still can't make head or tails of it. We're not sure who's going to win. There's so many unknowns, so many variables, but it might have been a good move for both teams. Either way, the GM of the BVDs felt like it was time to make a change. So one was made. We'll see how that works out into Week 6 for him. The one thing about this team that I know, it's been quiet around the locker room, but everybody loves Chris Hogan. Everybody is very high on this kid. They like what he can do, especially having Brady back, and now he might be Brady's number one deep threat. It looks like they might have found a diamond in the rough. Time will tell. Still a little bit unproven, but they like what they're seeing in practice on a day-to-day basis and like the chemistry he's bringing to the locker room. As for the Go Cubs and shit, freshly named, a bet was made late night the other night. You might have seen it roll across the chirp, across the newswire, that $100 to the first 3 people who responded saying that the Cubs would win the World Series. Basically, $100 on the field to win the World Series. That bet was quickly accepted by management of the KBGs, the Buddy Van Doodles, and the Chewable Batman. So just put that on record, on film, so it's here and everybody knows about it. That bet is on the books. We'll see how that pays out. Last week, the Go Cubs and shit ended up beating Rob thanks to one Phil Rivers, who had a great game, played very well against Oakland. That was really the deciding factor in the matchup on that one. He also was very active in the waiver period. He ended up spending a huge money on the fab for one Jalen Richard out of Oakland, who currently I believe he sits 3rd on the depth chart. So I'm going to say he's never even going to play a snap or score a point for this team, but he felt it was necessary to go out there and get him and really send a message that he's going to, send a message and going to, basically pay anybody who comes through the front door. So if you need some money, if you're a middling running back looking for a home and it's on the border of getting waived, go down over to the Go Cubs and shit practice field. You probably end up with $60 million over 5 years. The matchup, I think, that is sneaky to watch or the game, I should say, that's sneaky to watch in this matchup, that's very important for the Go Cubs and shit, is going to be that Seattle defense game, going up against the high-powered Atlanta offense. I think that could really be a deciding factor in this matchup, and one that's going to be interesting to watch to see if that Seattle defense can shut down that Atlanta offense. As for the pick, I had a hard time with this one. I really thought it over. I looked at both rosters, and in the end, I think I'm going to pick, I know I'm going to pick the BVDs. And my main reason is Rivers and Travis Benjamin end up going to the no-fly zone in Denver and going up against that defense. And I don't think that spells good news for them. I think they're going to have a real rough matchup. I expect low point totals into them that don't hit their projections, and therefore I think the BVDs are the team that comes away with the W this week. Other W stands for week, wins, game 3, go. The third game we are going to discuss and we're going to analyze is the Reading Dwayne Bows at 3-2, sitting there in 4th place, going up against, this is my white mare, at 4-1, sitting there in 3rd place. This is a great match. This is a primetime match. The line on this one favors the Reader by just a little bit, by like 4 points. Not a big deal. However, the all-time record favors Turo 3-1. The Readers had a little bit of trouble against Turo historically. Turo holds the edge in this one. First team is the Reading Dwayne Bows. They played Bill last week. Bill looked like he was on the right track, and then he went to the wrong town, and the Reading Dwayne Bows beat him down, posting the highest score in the league. Thanks largely to, I think, over combined 50 points from both backs, from both the running backs there. Cam Sargent-Payne and Zeke, both of them were just ridiculously good. It's hard to lose when you're getting 50 out of 2 positions like that. Zeke is so good and I hate to admit this as a Giants fan, it hurts us here in the studio, but Zeke is so good, and a little piece of me dies inside every single time I Zeke break off another run, because he should be in the Big Blue, and he's over there in Big D, and that's what he sucks now, is because he's in Big D, and I can't even support the guy, but what are you going to do? Maybe next year, huh? The other big thing that was a surprise with the Reading Dwayne Bowe's performance was that Breeze and Ingram were both on bye. And they come out of this bye hungry. They come out of this bye refreshed. And I think they're ready to have a big game. I think it was a big win for him last week, surviving those byes. And he's at full strength this week. So looks to be good heading into week 6. As for This Is My White Mare, he had a bye week last week in week 5. Didn't have to play very hard. He still got the W, but it's essentially a bye week is the way it plays out in this league. Melvin Gordon is a TD machine, total different guy than he was last year. You have to wonder how long can he keep this up, because the pace he's on is like Emmitt Smith territory, and it's ridiculous, and I just don't know if he can maintain it, so I worry about that a little bit. Also, he's got Sammy Coates, who's just absolutely on fire. Every ball he catches is like a 60-yard touchdown. It's hard to compete with that as well. There's a couple questions for This Is My White Mare going in this week, though. There's 3 main questions that I have. The first question is this Aaron Rodgers' get-right game? Because he's got to have one. He's been terrible this year, but I think this might be his get-right game. This week looks good for him. Also, is Jeremy Hill actually hurt or not? He left the game week 5, so that could play into a little bit of if Hill can't go full strength. We'll see how that goes against New England. And thirdly, is Turo sober? Because sometimes he borders on single Scott territory, and it's a little sad to see, but I love going along for the ride. So that's the third question. As for the pick in this game, you know what? I'm going to pick Turo in the upset. Even though he's not favored over the Reading Dwayne Bowe and they're at full strength, I'm going to pick Turo in the upset for a few reasons. First off, history shows that Turo is a big game gamer. He comes to play against the Reading Dwayne Bowe's 3-1 all time. Also, I think the big matchup to watch in this one, the one I worry about, is Melvin Gordon going up against the Broncos defense, which is both things that This Is My White Mare has. It's always hard when you have one of your best players going up against the defense, so I'm curious to see how that plays out. This one could be over pretty early if that ends up being a stinker from either side, but we'll see. So keep an eye on that for Thursday Night Football. Game number 4. The next game we're going to talk about is the 3-2 Bubblegum by the Bum, sitting there in 8th place, going up against Vit's squad at 2-3 in 9th place. This is the dividing line between the 2-3 and the 3-2s, really showing right about where that playoff line is falling out right now. The line on this one has Vit heavily favored by about double digits, right around 10 points currently. The all-time record also favors Vit 2-0. So Muddle's looking for that first win against Vitali. Not the only team to do that. Vitali's got a lot of undefeated teams all time, so no shame in that. First, I want to talk about Vitali's team. He lost to the greatest of all time last week by about 5 points, the GOAT. So there's no shame in that loss. Everybody's lost to the GOAT, it seems like, at one point or another. You just got to take it and you got to move on. The big question for this team right now is the Cam Newton concussion. We don't know if he's going to be back. I think he's going to be because he's a gamer, but they're treating him with kid gloves after the Denver beating he took in week 1, so a little bit up in the air right now. We're going to have to see the practice and the reports and see how the injury reports coming out during the week, but that could be a deciding factor in this one. Also, Gurley, man, he was drafted like a number 1 overall like he should have been, but that team can't throw the ball for shit, and so he's running every game, every play, he's running up against 10, 11, 12, 13 guys in the box. I think I saw the head coach out there last week in the box as well, trying to stop the run. I mean, he just has no room to run, no room to operate. Even though they're trying to get him involved in the passing game a little bit, still tough to get him going. He's been slow this year and hasn't nearly performed what he wants, but as far as trade offers goes, Vitt still thinks he's the best player in the league. The other big problem for Vitt's team right now is Brian Hoyer hates Alshon Jeffrey for some reason. I don't know if Jeffrey fucked his wife in the offseason or something, but he is not throwing the ball to him. It's like he doesn't even exist on the field. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out as well. A lot of question marks for Vitt. As for the Bubblegum by the Bum, lost to 1 point to Nick Minot, the Revenge of the Scurv on Monday Night Football. Can't say I was sorry to see that one happen here in the studio. He also has Wilson back this week. He's got Murray healthy, so he's starting to come back to form, coming off that bye week for Wilson. The big problems he has in his team right now, as far as this analyst sees it, is that OBJ and Fuller need to bounce back. OBJ showed a little bit of life last week. Was still a little bit of a disappointment all year. Fuller, I think, threw up almost a 0 or near a 0 or something. I mean, he was just an absolute nobody last week. So they have to have a bounce-back game to have a shot and overcome that double-digit margin. And now we actually have a special guest joining us on the phone. It's the general manager of the Bubblegum by the Bum, Moto. He's here. He's a new dad. He's got his head on straight, and he's ready to answer some questions. Moto, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Feeling great. A little nervous to be on the show. Long-time viewer, first-time caller. So, I'm real excited to be on the program.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. First question I got for you is right now you're sitting there at 2-3, just on the outside looking in. I mean, how are you feeling about your playoff chances at this point in Week 6?
I'm feeling great. My team, we're playing with a lot of grit right now. My guys are going out there, smashing faces and taking names. And, we have a mentality here at Bubblegum by the Bum. We go by fail fast and move on. We played a great team on Monday night. Unfortunately, we weren't able to squeak out a victory there. But I got a lot of guys coming back, feeling real good. We've had some bumps in the road. First couple weeks, that was on me. That was on me as a general manager. I dropped the ball, left a lot of points on the bench, and we should have won a few games there that we didn't. But I got an opportunity now with a healthy team, strong team, and I feel like we're about to make a good run in the playoffs.
Excellent, excellent. I was asking around the league a little bit about your team this week, and I heard that you were making a couple calls, trying to shop Odell Beckham, kind of gauge his value, see what the market was. Were you surprised by how weak the market was, and that now it seems like at best he's going to be a wide receiver 2 the rest of the year?
I wouldn't say that's a fair assessment. If you want to take a look at the 2015 stats of Odell Beckham, they are nearly identical through the first 5 games to the 2016 stats. I think we can all agree that Odell Beckham was easily a top 5 wide receiver in the 2015 season, and I have no doubt that he will finish the same this year. Slow start. I mean, it's Eli Manning throwing you the ball. What do? He's Jekyll and Hyde. You never know what you're going to get when he shows up.
True.
But, he's my workhorse. I got to feed him the ball. I got to feed my top dog the ball. And as far as his value in the market, unfortunately, the people that did respond, not trying to point any fingers, but J-Rod, the not bod, he just overhypes his players, and he thinks that the Atlanta backfield is the greatest thing in the NFL right now. He also thinks that Jamal Charles is back to what he was in 2014, and I'm not going to take some bullshit trade offer for a guy that I think is easily a top 10, top 15 fantasy player.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a good strategy for sure. One final question before I know you got to run. You had a tough loss on Monday Night Football, as you mentioned last week. How's that karma feel after stealing an undeserved loss from the KBGs in Week 1?
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and say this first. I'm gonna take the high road and say congratulations to Minot on a great victory. It was a very hard-fought game, and his guys are just the better team on Monday night. To your point about the karma, honestly, I think the only karma in this whole situation happened to the Cabo Ghost. They got a manager in Maine that, let's just be honest, he's kind of a shitty person, and they deserve that loss. And I don't think it was karma on my end. My team played well. We just lost to what was a better team on Monday night, and we have to regroup, kind of reevaluate some players, mess with some rosters, and once we get in the playoffs, we'll hopefully have things dialed in right and take out teams like Minot.
Yeah, I think that's we'll see how it all works out. I mean, the studio might not agree with you with your assessment of other owners and whatnot, but we are a fair and balanced show here, and we take all viewpoints equally, and we consider them as well. Thank you for joining us very much, there, Moto. Good luck this week against Vitali, and we will be in touch.
All right, thanks so much.
Now, thank God that motherfucker is off the phone. He'll never be a member of the show again. Bad-mouthing the KBGs. Does he know who he's talking to? I don't think he does. The KBGs are a very upstanding team. Everybody knows it. They have a great general manager. They do all sorts of charity work with burned children and non-burned children and stuff. I don't even know, but they do some of it. Now we're going to come down to my pick. And I'm going to try not to let this phone call affect my pick. But it's awfully hard. But I'm going to say I'm going to pick Moto to win this week. I'm going to pick him in the upset. You're going to have Cam, concussed Cam. I think he does play at New Orleans, but I don't think he's 100%. I think they're going to really be careful with him. He's not going to get the running stats that he usually does because they're going to try to keep him healthy the rest of the year. He's too important to that team. You got Gurley at Detroit, which looks like a good matchup, but I just don't like Gurley. They just stack the box. Everybody can do it. The big games in this one is going to be Sunday Night Football for this matchup. Even though Moto only has Fuller going in this game, Vitaly's got Gore, he's got Hilton, he's got the Houston defense, he's got the Houston kicker. So it's going to be a big point swing there. And what it's going to come down to is then David Johnson going on Monday night. And we all know from last year's semifinal playoffs, what David Johnson can do on a Monday night, don't we, Wingus? So never count him out. Never count out the team with David Johnson going on Monday night. That's why I'm picking Moto. And we're on to the next game. Boom! This is the game. This is the game. I have been waiting for this moment all week because this is a true Keg Watch game. It took us 6 weeks, but this is a true Keg Watch game, one that will certainly play into who actually buys the keg at the end of the year. This is a monster Keg Watch game. This is the biggest Keg Watch game we've had all year. It is, of course, the Chalupa Batman at 1-4, sitting in 11th place, going up against the J-Rod, the Bod, Limbach, also 1-4, sitting in 12th place. It's the two bottom teams in the league facing off in the Keg Watch game. You can't write scripts like this. I love it. I love it. Keep an eye on this matchup this week, because if it's not the Keg Watch game, it would have been the game of the week as far as I'm concerned. The line on this one is who the fuck knows, because Jared has traded 8 players in the last 24 hours. I don't know who's starting for him. I don't know what the projections are. I don't even know what that lineup looks like. So I have no clue what the line is on this game. However, the all-time record favors Bill 4-1, which may play into my pick. Little spoiler alert there. First off, Bill lost the Reader. Not his fault. Not his fault he lost the Reader. Reader was just on a mission this week. Took out all his hatred instead of beating his wife. He beat Bill. It was really too bad. Bill was just in the way of the train. The biggest question for the Chalupa Batman this week is Carson Palmer back or not? You know, he's been hurt. He was a little concussed, a little woozy, but that team needs him back quick, and they need him back now. Both Arizona and both the Chalupa Batman, so I know he's hoping he plays. It looks like he will currently, but we'll monitor the injury report for the rest of the week. Also, the rock of Bill's team right now of the Chalupa Batman is Greg Olson. Greg Olson is a fucking beast. He is in beast mode. He is just going to catch all the balls. He's going to make all the touchdowns. He's going to score all the points. And as long as you got Olson on your team, I feel like you got a chance. I don't really care who you plug in anywhere else, but when you got Olson rolling like he's rolling right now, you got a chance to get the dub on the board. As for the J-Rod, the Bod, Limbach squad, what is there to say? He has been searching for a lineup that works. He is the Cleveland Browns of the league. He's the league slut. I just hope and pray that those players still play hard for him, because with all this turmoil in the locker room, all these lockers being cleared out and new people being brought in, you don't even know who your teammate's going to be on Sunday. It would be an awful hard scenario to be in, awful hard situation. He's looking for that right combination of players. He may have found it this week. We're going to find out with all these acquisitions he made. Took a gamble. Last week he lost to Turo. Lost to This Is My White Mare, only scored 65 points, hence all the house cleaning. I say that like that was actually the reason for the house cleaning. We all know that if he had scored 165 points, it still would have been a house cleaning. But anyway, we'll say that was the reason. His biggest move, or result of his moves, is he's got wides. He's got wides for days. He's got A.J. Green, which is great. He's got Brandon Marshall, which is great. He's got Jarvis Landry, which is kind of great, or okay, who knows, day to day. He's just got nice wides there. He sold the farm a little bit on his running backs to get those wides. We'll see if that strategy pays off or not, but the biggest thing that's going to determine the fate of this team is his running backs. And he's got Hyde now, and he's got Charles. And Hyde's been good, but I feel like Hyde's been playing above his head a little bit. And Charles, I don't know what to expect with Charles. If he gets, 4 years ago Charles, then it might be a pretty good deal. He's traded Gronkowski for Charles. If he gets Charles from last year or this year, or old man Charles, or 60% Charles, I don't think that's a great deal at all. As far as I know, Charles might not even be a flex in another couple weeks, depending on how the Chiefs decide to put him back in there and how his knees holds up. So it's going to be a big question mark, big risk-reward pick, which is really what you got to do when you're 1-4. So we'll see how that plays out for him. As for my pick in this one, I'm going to take Bill. And my reasoning is, first off, history. That 4-1 is tough to get by. Absolutely tough to get by. He's risen to the occasion before against J-Rod. And I just don't know what to expect from Charles. That's my biggest thing. He made that big move for Charles. I don't know what to expect from him. I don't think you're going to see a ton this week, but maybe it will. Maybe this is his get-right game. And the big game to watching this matchup is another, similar to one of the other matchups earlier, is you have a primary running back going against a primary defense, and that's what Bill's got going. He's got Matt Forte going against the Arizona defense, has both those crews, or one that player and the other the crew, got them together, and they're going on Monday Night Football. And depending on how Jared's roster shakes out, that could be the deciding factor. So we'll all have to keep an eye on Monday Night Football to see what kind of beer we may be drinking, because that could be a big game, especially when it comes down to the tiebreaker at the end of the year if those teams remain tied near the bottom of the league. So, big game this week. Keep an eye on it. Let's go to the gut dub. Woo! This is a big game. This is the gut dub. You thought the Cakewatch game was big? You ain't seen shit yet. Because this is the biggest game of the week. This might be one of the biggest games of the year. We have the Revenge of the Scurv at 3-2, sitting there in 5th place, going up against She Duked on Mike Johnson, sitting there at 4-1 in 2nd place. And here's why this is a big game. Minot is favored in this game. Heavy. Vegas loves Minot. Minot's up there favored by, I think, 15, 16, 17 points after getting Gronk. I mean, the point totals look ridiculous for Minot this week. The all-time record favors Minot 3-0. It's one of the only teams that She Duked on Mike Johnson has never beat in the league. I think it's only one of 2 teams he's never beat. When it comes to Minot's team, he beat Moto last week because Fitzgerald and Big Ben can't be stopped. They're just on fire right now, had great years. Looks to continue, doesn't look like they're showing any signs of stopping anytime soon. You look at the stats, though, and the Revenge of the Scurv is the Saints of the KML. They have the most points scored and the most points allowed. They got a great offense and a shitty defense. I know it's out of his control, but still it's his defense. But he wins games on pure strength, on pure brawn, and just by outscoring the opponents, which is usually what you have to do to win another game. That was a Madden comment, but in this case, he's got to do it by about 115 points to 114 points rather than like 90 to 80. So the key this week for the Revenge of the Scurv, he's a big favorite. He's got Gronk in the fold, which I know he's excited about. Bell is an absolute monster, getting better by the week. I mean, as long as Pittsburgh stays hot, Bell's going to be getting the points. Fitzgerald, just I swear to God, seems to be getting younger by the day. Shows no signs of stopping. The only question mark for this team is that Colts defense. He's got the Colts defense starting in there. That could be a little bit of a risky play, but we'll see how that works out. As far as it goes for the She Duked on Mike Johnson, he beat Vitt last week, and the reason he beat Vitt is because of Jordan Howard. Jordan Howard is an absolute beast. I know nobody wants to admit it. I know the league doesn't want to say anything about it or give props where props is due, but Jordan Howard is an absolute motherfucking beast. The only question is what happens to him when Langford comes back. I think we're like 1 or 2 weeks away from Langford coming back. We'll see how that timeshare works out, because I know the Bears kind of like Langford, but Jordan Howard's the young guy. I think it might be his job to keep, and as long as he's got the job, he's going to put up double-digit points every week, which is a great to have in your back pocket. The real question here is, why does Lamar Miller suck shit so bad? He has no TDs on the year. He has played awful as far as it goes. I mean, he's been okay, but he's not great by any stretch of the imagination. You draft him as like a top 5 back, top 3 back maybe, and he hasn't done anything. I think he might be outside of the running back 2s. I know he's outside of the running back 1s. It's like, when is he going to bust out? Is he going to bust out? I mean, we're in week 6, but I think he might do it soon. When it comes down to the pick for this game, of the gut dub game, I thought about it a long time. I know the greatest of all time, the GOAT, isn't going to like it, but I got to pick against him again. I'm picking Minot. I just think it's too big a hill to overcome. Everything's coming up roses for this kid right now. He's got everything pointing in his favor. Big favorite. There's 2 things I do want to watch in this, though. The first is going head-to-head Pats running backs. That's going to be an interesting matchup. I'm interested to keep an eye on that to see how that works out. We got Minot and Joel both starting the Pats running backs there, so we'll be curious to see. That could really sway the game one way or the other, because if one guy has a big game, the other guy's probably not. We're not talking about Atlanta here where everybody gets points. This is the Patriots. So that's going to be huge. Sunday Night Football is also going to be huge because You got Luck and Lamar Miller going against the Colts defense and Vinatieri from Minot. So he's got Luck and Miller on one end. We got the Colts defense and Vinatieri on the other. It's going to cut in some points. Going to cut, points traded back and forth between the two. But those matchups alone makes me think that, I think Minot's going to have the lead going into that game. So it'll be an interesting one, though. I'm excited to watch it because that's two powerhouses going up against each other, two of the best teams in the league, and it could have implications or ramifications, not only for playoffs, but who gets the bye. I'm calling it, week 6, we can call it, one of these teams might get a bye when it comes down to playoffs. We're getting close. We're only about 7-8 weeks out, so keep an eye on that game there. That does it for the KML Weekly Preview. I hope you all enjoyed what we did here today. We will try to do better next week, as we always do. I hope everybody stays safe out there. Everybody has an injury-free week 6. And everybody has good luck on the football field. Let's have some good games. Let's watch that Keg Watch game. Let's watch that Gut Dub game. And I will see you back here next Wednesday for the Week 7 preview. Thanks for watching, and have a good night.